Hi, I'm Katie Crane, and this is the Pilates Lounge. Hi, I'm Katie Crane, the Pilates professional. Welcome to another episode of the Pilates Lounge podcast. Before I get started today, I want to let you know that this episode is inspired by my interview or my conversation that I had with the Pilates Elder Mary Bowen. So if you haven't yet listened to that episode, it was episode 17. Mary Bowen is one of the last remaining surviving Pilates elders. So that means that she was herself taught by Joseph and Clara Pilates back in 1959 or from 1959, and she self-studied with them for 10 years before being invited to become a Pilates instructor. So she really is a legacy of the Pilates industry. And I interviewed her, or I conversed with Mary, because it was International or World Pilates Day on the first weekend of May. After that conversation, I have reflected a lot on my own journey to becoming a Pilates professional and my continued learning on myself, on my own practice, and what it means to me to be able to serve my community. And so this episode today is really born from that conversation. And I know that if you yourself are a Pilates professional, wanting to become a Pilates professional, or if you are serving people in any way in your community, this is a super important episode for you, because I understand and I realize that Mary also understands exactly how you feel. I am talking about us not feeling like we are worthy, like we are enough. And this is one of the reasons that I started this podcast, the Pilates Lounge podcast, but it's also one of the reasons that I started Pilates Pro Academy. Pilates Pro Academy really was born from a desire to support people and to create a community of support for anybody who wants to serve their community with Pilates. Now, if you are practicing Pilates yourself, if you are already out there serving people as a Pilates instructor, you know that we hold some magic. What we do really does change lives. There's no doubt about it. But quite often we get in our own way. And my conversation with Mary on reflection is a reminder for us just to step aside, just get out of your own damn way and let yourself serve people. Now, there are no doubt some really common things that come up in ourselves when we are building our business, when we're starting to serve people, and as we continue to serve people. Of course, these could be seen as fears, maybe hurdles, or maybe just part of our growth within ourselves as well. I know that I also suffer from these on and off, and I have to keep checking in on myself and checking myself and reminding myself that what I do matters and that there's a bigger picture than my own self-doubt and my own ego. So, one of the main things that we all suffer from is imposter syndrome. So if you've never heard of it before, imposter syndrome, it's like that pervasive feeling of inadequacy or a fear of being exposed as a fraud despite evidence of competence. Pilates instructors might doubt their qualifications, their experience, or your ability, even when you are skilled and knowledgeable. And this is normal, it's really common, and we all suffer from imposter syndrome. Partly, I believe that we suffer from this imposter syndrome because we are so invested in the work that we do, and we realize that what we do matters so much, but also we're always comparing ourselves to other people. Partly, social media, I believe, could be part of the problem, I suppose. So I wonder if social media has a lot to answer for. But no doubt, even without things like those types of platforms, we are always second guessing ourselves and feeling like we're not good enough. The reality of it is, where you are today, the service that you are offering your community and the knowledge that you have today is going to be different tomorrow. So as long as every time when somebody walks in the room, when you serve a client, when you teach a class, as long as you take time to reflect on that session and learn from that session, then the next session that you teach is going to be better, is going to be more evolved, more developed, and you are going to have a deeper understanding. And if you go into every day that you teach or every day that you're serving your community with that attitude, then where you are today is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You are where you are today in your understanding, in your ability, in your learning, in your conversation, in your knowledge, in your development, in your maturity. You are where you are today because this is where you need to be. So we are all, and Mary said something to this effect in our conversation, we are all constantly emerging. We are all a seed either waiting to be germinated, to be watered, to be nourished, or we are a flower continuing to bloom as long as we are always moving forwards. So don't ever feel like just because, maybe you work in a studio with other instructors and maybe you are the newest instructor or maybe you are the person with the least amount of teaching experience. It doesn't make you any lesser to anybody in the room. The reality of it is we only have to be one step ahead of the person that we're teaching. So that means that if you're a new instructor, and quite often the way that it works in a studio is that if you're the newest instructor, then the people that you are teaching are the people that are brand new to Pilates. Well, you're already a step ahead of them, aren't you? Because you know how to teach Pilates. You know how to teach a basic class or a beginner's class. And then within that studio, the people that have been teaching for the longest or the people with the most experience, they end up teaching and taking on the clients with the most complex issues because that is their level of experience. So they are a step ahead of the person that they're teaching. So you really don't need to be too concerned that there are going to be layers or levels or a sliding scale of experience within the studio that you're normally working. Of course, if you're working on your own, either from home or you've opened a new studio and you are the lead, then it's just really important that you are only taking on clients that you are either a step ahead of them or you are very, very clear with them that you don't know what their condition is or that you haven't worked with their condition before, but that you are committed to learning about their condition so that you can serve them. And if that's the case, I've been there. I've been teaching now for a couple of decades, but I started on my own. When I first started teaching, I moved to a place where there was no other Pilates, or there was kind of, a mixture of Pilates and gym or Pilates and kettlebells kind of setups, but there was nobody teaching just Pilates. So I was the first person to do that in where I set up. And so I was on my own. I didn't have somebody to look up to in a studio. I didn't have my mentor lived in another state. So while I could contact her and ask her questions, I really had to forge my own way. So that meant that very quickly, I was seeing very complex conditions that I was not familiar with and that I certainly didn't have any confidence with. It was okay because I let those people know. And then they either decided to stick with me and we learned about their complex condition together. It was a very steep learning curve. Or they decided that, you know what? I feel like I need somebody who does know something. So maybe they went and saw somebody else that wasn't teaching Pilates. Maybe they stuck with their physiotherapist or they stuck with whoever it is that was able to help them. So it's normal for us to all be looking at each other and thinking that everyone is better than us. But the reality of it is we are all on this trajectory of learning, of empowering ourselves through learning, and of continually expanding our understanding and our skills. Fear of failure is the second one that I want to talk about. Many instructors, and I've seen this all the time, so many times I've seen this fear of failure. A lot of the time I see it first in student instructors as they're going through their training. At some stage in their development and in their training experience, they realize what a mammoth task they've taken on to become a Pilates instructor. They've realized just how much they need to learn to get to where they want to be, and they don't think that they can do it. Fear of failure is real, but it also happens to us along the way as we develop our skills. So it seems to me that the more we learn, the more we realize we don't know. So when we first sign up to our Pilates instructors course, then most of us, we just love Pilates and we want to share it with people. It's no big deal. Halfway through the course, when all the anatomy and physiology stuff is still not making sense, I have to get in front of a class and teach somebody what the setup is, when they need to breathe. I need to know all of the muscles, all the joints, all the bones, and I need to know all the repertoire, why I'm doing the repertoire, how I'm going to put the class together. There's so much that I need to know, and I didn't realize when all I wanted to do was share my love of this thing called Pilates that I'd found. All of a sudden, fear of failure sets in. All of a sudden, I want to drop the ball and run away because this is way too big, this is way too much, and I'm not ready for this. That's normal. I felt it. I see every single student who comes through our Pilates teacher training course feels it. That's why we do face-to-face training. That's why in-person mentoring is absolutely 100% key to students getting the support that they need throughout their learning experience so that they can be helped through those fears. But we also feel those fear of failures as we start to progress with our teaching. I remember when I first opened my own studio, oh my gosh, that fear of failure was like a rock that I had to carry with me everywhere I went. I'd be having coffee with a friend and that rock, that fear of failure would sit on the chair next to me, reminding me that the table is about to topple over. I'd go on holiday and that fear of failure of my clients not booking in with me when I came home from my much needed holiday was always with me. Fear of failure is real. It continues as we develop. I hate to tell you this, but it definitely continues, that worry all the time. Am I good enough? Is this going to work out? If I expand my studio, will I find the instructors that I need to find to keep the business going? If I need to move studios from another location, what if my clients don't come with me? What if I'm not in the right location? What if nobody finds me? What if? That can be a constant on our shoulders. The reality of this is that we don't have control over everything. There are certain things in life, and this could be a life conversation, not just a Pilates professional conversation, but we just don't have control over everything. We don't have control over the weather. We don't have control over world events. We don't have control over other people's lives. And we certainly don't always have control over situations that happen in our own life. But if we are constantly driven by fear, then we're going to do ourselves a disservice. It's going to completely ruin our own mental and probably physical health, and it prevents us from really being able to help other people. So I have learned throughout life and throughout my nearly 20 years of running multiple Pilates studios that do not sweat the small stuff. It is real. Do not sweat the small stuff. Here's an example for you. Yesterday, I was with my mum, and my husband and I, we share a car on near where I work. So we have to catch a ferry across to the mainland, and then my studio is on the mainland. Well, we've actually got two cars over there, but I wanted to take one particular car, and it's got one of those push button lock entries. And just as I was about to leave home, and my mum lives remote near where we live, so we were catching the ferry together. She was taking my son to sport and I was going to work. And I realized that one of the car keys was missing, and that was the car that I wanted to take. And I was like, oh, well, it'll turn up. And my mum completely freaked out. She was like, what do you mean it'll turn up? You need to find out where that key is. Where is it? What have you done with it? What if you never find it? And I was like, I don't know, Mum, but I need to go get the ferry now. I don't have time to worry about it. And my bag was already packed. And normally my car keys, of course, are right down the bottom of my bag. I didn't want to have to pull out my laptop, my coffee, everything that I packed into my bag for the whole day. I didn't want to have to pull it all out. And I knew that I had another car anyway if I needed to use it. It just wasn't my preference. And first world problems, right? I know. So, but my mum was super stressed about it. We get on the ferry, and about 5 times she keeps bringing this damn car key up that I've lost, that I've noticed that isn't on my stack of keys, but it's already down the bottom of my bag. She's like, well, how much is that going to cost you if you can't find it? When did you last see it? Do you need a lift to the studio? Well, how are you ever going to get home? All these different questions. And I was like, Mum, it doesn't matter to me. It's not a big deal to me right now. When she said, well, what are you going to do if you don't find it? When are you going to go get another one? And I said, well, I'll probably just leave it for a couple of weeks, and then if it doesn't turn up, I'll figure it out. And she just looks at me like I'm a crazed maniac, like the look on her face that I was not concerned about this damn key that I didn't know where it was. She couldn't get her head around it. Now, in context, my mum is retired. She's been retired for like 20 years. Her job is literally to either take my son to sport if myself and my husband are working, or help look after our animals and tend to her own artwork because she loves doing art. So she doesn't have a lot of big stresses in her life. So to her, me losing that key was a huge, big deal. To me, I'm on my way to work. I'm about to work for 6 hours, seeing back-to-back clients. After that, I've got teacher training for 2 hours. Between seeing my own clients and doing the teacher training, I need to go get some food for my family, and I need to take some video episodes for my teacher training online. And after that, I'm going to be taking my staff out for dinner, and then I'll be on the 9 o'clock ferry home. So that's from 7 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. My whole day is chock-a-block full. So that key does not matter to me whatsoever. So don't worry about it. But that's how fear can overcome us. Don't sweat the small stuff. And a lot of the stuff when it comes to fear of failure, they are perceived what ifs that we actually don't have any control over. And they're just stories that we tell ourselves. They're things that we've made up in our head that actually probably won't even come true anyway. And a lot of the time, if they did come true, well, you're going to just have to deal with that truth as it happens, but don't worry about it. So end of the story is, you know what happened? When I got to the other side, my keys were somewhere in the bottom of the bag. I'd seen like that main stack of keys, and one was missing. But the cars that we have, you literally, you don't need the key. They're like automatic openings. So I just went near the car and I swung my bag around, and the door unlocked. And the look on my mother's face was just like, A, how did you make that happen? And B, how dare you make that look so easy and that you've overcome that huge issue that I thought that you had just by waving your bag around in front of the car and the car opened, which told me that, you know what? That key is somewhere in my bag of life, in my bag of everything. And at some stage, I'm just going to have to empty the whole bag out and the key is going to be in there. So instead of worrying about it, I just kind of, well, let's see if this works. And if it doesn't, I'm going to cross that off. That didn't work. Let's find a different way around it. So this is how fears can overcome us, but how we can also just put them aside and know that there's always going to be a solution. Don't worry about something that you actually have no control over in the moment. Most of the time, like I said, you've made up a story and you've made a bogeyman out of the story, and the story probably doesn't even exist. So don't worry about things. Just keep moving forwards and deal with the problems that you can deal with right now. So I already had my list of things that I needed to deal with yesterday, that day. The key wasn't one of them. So I'm not even going to put that on my list. I'm already busy. I've got enough on my plate. Fear of failure often is just worry. And I'm sure that I can't think of his name right now, but the Dalai Lama also speaks about stop worrying about things that you don't have control over. You just need to let them go. Comparison and competition. Who isn't looking at what the studio is doing down the road? We all do it, right? Don't lie, especially when it comes to social media. I'm going to share another story with you in a moment, but before I do, maybe it is important that you know what other people are doing. Maybe like you check out their prices, you see what their website is looking like, you see what offers they have. Maybe you are comparing yourself to other people. I don't think that in itself is a bad thing. I think that living with your head in the sand is probably more detrimental to yourself. So I think that being aware of your external, of your environment is probably a positive thing in most instances. But comparing yourself to other people without actually knowing that what you are comparing to is the truth could be very, very detrimental to you. So let's take social media, for example, right? So my social media handle for my studio, I have like 1,500 followers. I know it's a drop in the ocean, right? But I want to put this into perspective for you. I live in a city of like 120,000 people. That's all. I live in a pretty remote city. It's not like somebody from Sydney is going to come up and start doing Pilates with me, really, right? It's not where my people are. So I actively get on my social media and delete people that are not my ideal client. I know, it's crazy, right? I don't care about the number of followers I have. What I do care about is that the people that are following me are either potential clients or real clients. Otherwise, I just get rid of them. So if somebody from Japan is following me, they're not my ideal client. They're never going to come to me as a student. And if they do, like for my studio anyway, and if they do come, then they're probably just on holiday. And you know what? They'll find me on Google. Right? I make sure that I'm very high up on Google. I do all my SEO. I do all the things that I need to do to make sure that I come up there. But social media likes and social media followers is monopoly money. So there are like maybe there's 4 or 5 studios, right, near me. Pilates studios. One of the new studios, I have looked at her Instagram because I love seeing what other people are doing. And I do want to know what my, in inverted commas, competitors are doing. Not that I feel like we're on a competing scale, because I believe that there is room enough for everybody. And the people that I'm serving are different to the people that she's serving anyway. So we're not competition. We're community. But I do want to see, how many followers that she's got, and just out of interest, are they probably her people or not? So I look on her followers, and this girl is young, right? She's like in her mid-20s or whatever. So heaps of her followers are school friends, friends interstate. She's moved up from Sydney. So heaps of her followers are just friends that she's got online. And I know from that generation that they become friends with anybody online because they want the followers. So they're not even necessarily her ideal clients. So I've been in business for like 17 years. I've got 1,500 followers. She's been in business for 3 months and she's got 20,000 followers. But how many of those people are actually going to come and spend money with her? So don't worry if you're looking at social media for a good understanding of how the business is going. Social media is not a reflection of success. I can tell you that now. It's monopoly money. Also, as far as posting, maybe if you look at somebody who's posting on social media and it looks like, the whole social media thing, like they're living their best life, I can tell you, my friends, social media is not real life. And I can tell you this because I have a very good friend who has a very, very successful company on social media. And if you were to look at their social media feed, it looks like they live the absolute dream life. They look like the happiest people in the world. Everything is beautiful. Everything is perfect. They're always on holiday. You would be fooled into thinking that you want to be them. As very close friends of these people, I know that they are really, really struggling emotionally, physically, as a family, and in relationships. I know that family is actually it's tough to say, but they have a very, very toxic relationship. But social media, I know because I see the comments on their feed, people actually want to be them. Those people, they are the last people that I actually want to be. And this is a very dear friend of mine, and it really breaks my heart to see and to know that they're actually really struggling and that their children are really struggling as well. And unfortunately, those children are used on the social media. But I speak to my son about social media. He's older now. He's 14. And he tells me himself, I hated when I was a kid when you take photos of me. I'd hate it when you wanted me in the social media, which I don't do. I did a couple of times and then it just didn't sit right with me. He hates it. He doesn't want to be in the photos because he says, Mum, I want us to be in the moment. I want us to be as a family. These poor children, they are being used as marketing for that company. So don't believe everything that you're seeing on social media. And don't believe when you compare yourself to the studio down the road, to, people in your community or even people around the world, everything that you see is smoke and mirrors. So just compare your business or just compare what you are doing with where you were last year, last month, 5 years ago. Have you grown spiritually, emotionally, physically? Are you continuing on the trajectory that you want to be? That's your comparison. No, you don't need to compare yourself to anybody else. And that comes also back to your own Pilates practice, to your own self-development. Are you emerging from where you started to where your life is meant to be taking you? Are you going to reach your own greatest potential as a human being, as a Pilates instructor, as a practice? Are you on the right path? That's all that matters. Don't worry about what other people are doing because what you're seeing is not their story. What you're seeing and what you're perceiving is not necessarily their truth. The last one that I want to chat about today, oh no, I've got a couple more, is your lack of confidence in your skills. And maybe that's like in your business skills, in how you're running yourself as a Pilates instructor, but also in your own self-practice. So as a business owner, goodness me, the lessons that have been learned over the years have been hard. Sometimes I wonder why I couldn't just learn the lesson quickly and get it over and done with. Or sometimes I wonder, why didn't I just take that lesson and learn from it. Why does that thing keep happening? Well, things keep happening to us because we're not ready for the lesson to be learned, or we're not willing to learn. So if you are struggling in your skills, whether it's in business, in your own practice, or in your teaching practice, then either you are not open to learning, you're not listening to the lessons, or you're not ready. You're not ready to learn that lesson yet. So I believe that, and I have learnt that if we are open to failure, if we are open to being wrong, to constantly learning from our own experiences, from the experience of people around us, and we're constantly open to developing, then you will be where you need to be today. You are exactly where you need to be today. Don't worry about it. Don't get stuck in your own story that you're telling yourself, which probably isn't true anyway, that you don't have enough, that you're lacking. It's just your confidence. And the best way to grow your confidence is to be true to yourself, to be true to your community, and to be true to the work that you are doing. And there's a difference between confidence and ego. Like, nobody likes an egotistical wanker, let's call them. Sometimes you got to step aside of your ego. So ego is like always having to be right is your ego, or always having to go in like with those hard rules and those, no, I'm never going to change because this is the way that we've already done it. So ego is like that dogmatic approach to doing everything. Let go of that and be okay, like be vulnerable, but go forwards with love rather than fear. So those are the two ways really that we could approach everything that we do. If you approach everything with love, then it's okay if you don't get it right. It's okay if you mess something up. It's okay if you hurt somebody. It's okay if you don't make enough money. It's okay if you didn't realize that you had to do that thing, whatever it is. That's going forwards with love. Going forwards with fear is denying yourself, denying other people, not doing the right thing by somebody, doing things as quickly as you can do them, or trying to get shortcuts, or doing things because it's all about the money rather than serving people. So here's an example for you. Like I said, there's a few studios in my area. One studio is now offering something that they're going to call 24/7 Pilates. How is Pilates 24/7? Well, it's not. It's as simple as that. So this person, and I know because I know them, they are really lacking confidence in their own business skills. And so they're acting out of fear. So they're acting out of this feeling of lack, that they don't have enough, that they're not creating enough, that what they're doing isn't sustainable. From that lack of confidence, it's like a knee-jerk reaction, right? We're going to open up the studio. It's going to be 24 hours a day. The studio is open. People can swipe a card. They can come in. They can watch TV screens, get onto a machine and do something that we're going to call it Pilates. Well, you and I know that that's not serving anybody. It's not creating anything that is of value to anyone. It's putting money first. And if you put money first, it's going to fail. Even if you make a lot of money in the interim, there's so many things that can go wrong with a 24/7 service, especially when it comes to Pilates. I mean, if you've been teaching Pilates for a while, you've seen people fall off of a machine, even if they're having a one-on-one consult with you. So can you imagine what's going to happen if somebody falls off of a machine in a 24/7 setting where there's no instructor there to help that person? Can you imagine what's going to happen if that person keeps coming into the studio and they're not being taught by somebody face to face that, you know what, that's not good joint placement. That's going to end up shearing off that joint, and those people are going to end up injured. So this person who's opening this 24/7 studio, their lack of confidence in business skills is making them make very, very poor and potentially dangerous decisions for short-term gains. The reality of it is we all have to navigate the business side of our profession. We need to become marketers. We need to manage finances. We need to build a clientele. And if we lack support and skills in these departments, then we will make very bad decisions and do things like open a 24/7 Pilates studio that is actually damaging for the whole industry. And it's not going to work. I can tell you that now. Because what we need to be doing as Pilates instructors, Pilates professionals, is working on ourselves. So are you developing? Are you growing internally, personally? And the only way you can actually emerge from yourself is by working with people face to face. This is what Pilates is. And you know what? I'm not anti-online at all. I know that the online space has a lot to offer people. I've done a lot of online learning and I produce online learning as well. But there is a time and place for every part of our learning. So online learning for Pilates professionals is great for further education. If it means that it gives you access to something that wouldn't be available in your area, fantastic. Go with it, learn, find your community. And we have an amazing online community, but I'm in there all the time. So even though our students partly learn virtual, I'm in there doing lives all the time. They can ask questions and then I'll go ahead and answer the questions so that everybody can learn. But then when we need to, we are coming together face to face. So when a client needs me, I am seeing them face to face. This is where the Pilates learning is. 24/7 is not Pilates, oh my gosh, but it's lack of confidence in business skills. So this person has taken on way too big a space. They can't handle the space and now they're trying to figure out how can we fill this void so that we can make money. So it's from these poor business skills that this ridiculous notion has been born. The last one that I want to speak about today is feedback and criticism. Criticism is very, very difficult to take. I hate being criticized. We all do. But having feedback from people is very, very important. And being open to feedback is super important. So there is a way that we can create a safe space for feedback, and whether we're asking for feedback from our clients, from the people that we work with or amongst, from our spouse, from our children, from our friends, being open to feedback is really important, and it can be a very difficult lesson to learn. Criticism can be constructive. So a lot of the time when somebody is being critical, they get to that point because they haven't had the opportunity to express themselves. And we see this on social media all the time, right? Like the keyboard warriors are so quick to criticize. But quite often, I dare say that these are people who, A, are very, very self-critical. So quite often somebody who is very critical to others is also very critical to themselves. So probably that person needs love and support, an open platform for a conversation to be had. But when we criticize somebody else, quite often that would happen out of frustration because we feel like we weren't being heard in the first place. So as people and as Pilates professionals, as studio owners or wannabe Pilates professionals, the best thing we can do is be open to continually learning, continually emerging, like I keep saying, but be open to feedback and ask for feedback. I'm with a business group and the business group has a Facebook group, and we share like the projects that we're creating, and we give each other feedback. And when I first started being in that group, because I'm naturally very self-critical, like I spend a lot of time in my own head telling myself stories of that I'm not of lacking, that I'm not good enough, that the work that I'm doing isn't valuable enough, all these things. And I know that it's complete BS because I look at the work that I do and I actually know that the truth is that what I offer is quite astounding and quite brilliant and comes from a place of wanting to serve my community. But my inner critic is so judgmental and so harsh. And so when in the group that I'm in, when I find it really difficult to put up my work and put up my projects and ask for feedback, even though I know that the feedback that I'm receiving completely comes from a place of love. Like, I'm very close to these women and we spend a lot of time with each other, exposing ourselves and being vulnerable. But when somebody chimes in and gives me feedback, I really struggle with it, and I really have to sit with it for a moment. So my initial reaction is to lash out. But I'm learning at 48 years of age to take feedback and criticism as an opportunity to reflect and ultimately an opportunity to better myself. And when I better myself, then I can better serve other people. So taking feedback is really difficult for all of us. It's okay if you feel that as well, but it is part of what we need to be able to do as Pilates professionals, as people in general. It's also something that I've learned with being married for nearly 20 years is, sometimes when my husband gives me feedback, he's not having a go at me. I'm having a go at myself, because quite often the feedback that we receive from other people, it's already something that we know is lacking. It's already something that we're trying to work on, or it's something that we're resisting working on about ourselves, and then the person has pointed it out. So I guess it's a mirror, right? And it's taken me a long time to understand that. That saying when people say, oh, whatever it is that you don't like about somebody, that's a mirror reflection of yourself. I don't necessarily agree with that all the time, but I do recognize that when I struggle to take the feedback or the criticism from somebody, it's actually a part of me. So it's something that either I'm working on, I'm really finding it very difficult to succeed at, or I'm resisting working on. But once you take that feedback and you actually are like, right, I'm going to hold this feedback and then I'm going to actually do something with it rather than throw it back at them because it was a negative whatever and it made me feel icky. I'm going to take that feedback as a gift, and I know that now I can move forwards with it. Getting constructive feedback is absolutely crucial for our growth. And it's important that we let our community, our clients, if we're working with other teachers, we let people know that we want that feedback. And then when we get it, we take it graciously. Now, taking feedback graciously is also taking positive feedback graciously, because when somebody gives us a compliment, don't ever just brush that off, because if you just brush off a compliment, it actually denies that person that's giving you the compliment the gift that they're trying to give you. So don't throw that spaghetti on the wall. If somebody gives you a compliment and lets you know just how valued you are and how much you have helped them, how much you've helped them improve their life or whatever it is, be gracious and be grateful and sit with that for a moment with them so that they realize and recognize that you feel what they feel. So it's kind of a shoe shift thing. So I really hope that this episode has helped everyone a little bit today. Like I said, this was really partly in reflection to my conversation with Mary Bowen I hope that when I am 95 years old, that I am still open to growing and learning and sharing. Like, she was almost still like, she's super wise, there's no doubt about it. She's lived 2.5 or 2 of my lifetimes, more than 2 of my lifetimes, but she's also willing to still have this inner child about her and still be creating and creative. And it was the most beautiful experience to be in the moment with somebody who absolutely sees that you and I have a place here, that we are each of us completely unique, and that while Pilates will, of course, continue to change with the times, but that change is okay. And it actually doesn't really matter what everybody else is doing or what anybody else is doing, as long as what you are doing is wholesome and true to you, and that it actually is what you are meant to be doing. And that really is part of the reason that I started Pilates Pro Academy, because I believe that I've got something to share and you've got something to share. And if we can become community and share together and keep learning together and keep growing together, then can you imagine how much more we can help more people, how we can expand this beauty that we ourselves are becoming? It was such a beautiful conversation. So if you haven't listened to it, please go back and listen to episode 17 with Mary Bowen. And if you are looking for your community, if you do feel like you're all alone, or that you're not good enough, or that you're not sure what is your next step, what do you need next, then join us at Pilates Pro Academy. We've got a 6-month mentor program to become a reformer instructor. We also offer a bridging program for people who are already certified, but they want to expand on what they've already learned. And of course, we do further education workshops. Our work often is recognised by the Pilates Association of Australia. And I believe that for us to uphold industry standards, then it's important that we do become part of the Pilates industry. Of course, go out and do your own thing, be your own person, but also respect where Pilates has come from, respect the grassroots and those very deep foundations that Pilates has. My name's Katie Crane. I am the Pilates professional, and this is another episode of the Pilates Lounge. Have a wonderful day. I'll be speaking to you next week. I hope that you can join me again. Have a great day.